Hi, welcome to Jessie James Beads. My name is Jem and today we're going through our bead soup. What's bead soup? Well, it's leftovers from projects where you've worked on specific designs and you've got lots and lots of beautiful beads left over. So let's have a look at the mixes in today's bead soup. So my donor bead mixes were Colour Trends in Tokyo Nights, Market Fresh in Blueberry Pie, and Mini Mix in Blackberry Baby. And I've been left with this absolutely fabulous collection. That one nearly escaped. Quite like that one. So let's have a delve and see what we're going to use from this gorgeous collection. So today I'm feeling earrings. So I have a pendant dropper down at the bottom, and you could be using a little floral charm. You could be using anything with an easy access loop like this very sexy Blackberry. And then you've got a whole choice of tassels from these three mixes. And this is just the leftovers, mind. There's loads more if you mix those three together. So I really love the idea of black and red together. And I've been eyeing up these beautiful pieces to use on the way. So it doesn't matter if they're the same way up or upside down. They look equally beautiful in whatever orientation you use them. And we're going to start simple. I have around about 8 inches of that 18 gauge round wire. So it's being flush cut both ends. Let's just give that a warm through. And we're going to start down at the bottom with a loop onto which we can add our choice of dropper. So you could go for these beautiful fairy skirt flowers or the suede look. They're so pretty, so much fun. And I'm going to start around about 2 inches from one end and just pop a little right angle bend on, like so. And then we're going to hop in with our round nose pliers and create a nice large form. So you could use your bail makers if you prefer. I'm going to use close to the base of my round nose pliers to make a lovely oversized round form. Let's move those out of the way. That looks pretty good. So you do need quite a large form if you're going through a solid bead like so. It can be a little bit smaller if you're adding on something with a loop, such as the little fairy skirt. What we're going to do is give that a quick strengthen. And if you are making these as earrings, I would say get to this stage twice over, and then you'll have the same size loop twice and it will look much more matched. Give that a quick squish to make it nice and strong. Then you can open it up and slide your chosen drop section into position. Now, the reason I suggest having a large loop down at the bottom when you're going through a drilled bead like this is to not put any additional stress on that drill hole. Beads can be made out of glass or gemstone or really any material, and some of them much prefer not having any stress on them. So I'm just going to hold across that loop shape and rotate that wire around 1.5, maybe 2 times. Just make sure that you're happy with that nice spiraling, coiling that you've just done, and get that to sit straight at the bottom there. What we're going to do now is take this little excess of wire sticking out at the bottom, and again, if you're making these as earrings, get both of them to this stage and then you can check that both of these are the same length before you turn that into a little spiral to push down over the face of your earring dropper. So let's just rotate that wire around to begin with, getting that circular form started before we start pushing that slowly, just a tiny bit at a time, until that sits centrally over your core wire. And then you can just push that down over the front of the design. It just looks really cute, a little bit extra added to go on there. So for today's earrings, I thought we would add a second piece of wire to the design as well. And for this, I'm going to use some 20 gauge rounds in a slightly different colour. For one thing, I really like mixing metals, and for another thing, it gives you the opportunity to just see which bit of metal does what. So let's cut a length. It's around about 5 inches. And again, if you're doing earrings, do it bit by bit. Let's just flush cut the other end. We'll undoubtedly trim it anyway, but just to keep things neat and tidy. Give that a quick warm through. And then we're going to start wrapping that around that core wire. So I would say give yourself around about 1 inch of wire on the end there. And then I find it easier just to rotate the longer length away and around to make a nice little tight spiral. Now, if your spiral or your coil gets away from you, you can just tighten that up with your flat facing, in this instance, chain nose pliers. And what we're going to do is to just bring that tail out, tighten that spiral up. Again, step by step, do both sides at once and you'll be good. Bring that back out into a nice straight wire and then slide that down to the base. And what I'm going to do here is to add another spiral. If you wanted to, you could wait to spiral up that little end piece of wire until you've added this one, and then you can get them both the same length, albeit they will look slightly different because they're a slightly different gauge. You've got 18 gauge for your main wire, and then you've got this little bit of supplementary wire in a 20 gauge. So start by spiraling that around again. Push that down. Get that as close as you can to that core wire. And then what I like to do with metals that are a different colour is I'm just going to push that down over the top of the bronze one. So you get this kind of double spiraled effect. You could have it going up in the other direction if you preferred. Then we're going to add our next bead of choice. In this instance, I'm going for this lovely silver colour. I don't know if you'd call that a spacer bead. It's kind of fancy. And I'm going to put that on the main core wire, draw that all the way down. Make sure that I'm happy with where those spirals sit. And then I'm going to draw the wire all the way round the side, just to give it a lovely little bit of a haloing. It does help if you warm it through, just to get it nice and smooth. And you can either take that underneath or over the top of the core wire. Depends how you're feeling today, I suppose. Pinch everything together firmly, take that tail all the way around and wrap a couple of times on that core wire. You just get an extra added bit of detail. Now when you're making the other side, I quite like to have one earring with the wire halo round the right hand side and the other earring with the halo of wire round the left hand side, but you can mix and match, make it exactly how you want to see it. So let's add our chosen bead. Now I just want to show you what else is in the mix. You could go feisty green, you could go gorgeous metallic blue, you could go purple, there's golden spicy beads with those little rhinestones on them. There's a baby blue with an electro colour over the top. You've got two-tone. There's bajillions of choices in this mix. So let's slide on my chosen choice, which she says, which is a red faceted rondelle. Really, really pretty. I do love black and red together. Very, very elegant and timeless. And what I'm going to do is to bring that wire, currently sitting underneath, because I went from top to top on my first wrap. I'm going to go from underneath to top, just because that's how the mood has taken me. And then I'm going to wrap that round a couple of times up at the top there. Again, take your time. Make sure it's nice and neat and tidy and how you want to see it work. And then we're just going to create a very simple loop up at the top, into which we can add our earring finding. Now you have choices. You can take your finer gauge wire all the way back down over the top as well. I quite like to see it asymmetric, so it's just wrapped on the one side. And then, as I mentioned earlier, when you make the second earring, wrap the wire around the left-hand side and again around the left-hand side. So what I will do is just trim this to approximately the same length as we had for the spirals down at the bottom of the design. Create another little spiral. And we're just going to sit that out of the way for a second. So let's grab those bent chain nose pliers. Do, 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 do. It's like holding music in a lift. And there we go. All the way back up to the centre line. And then when I'm happy with how that looks, I might just push it down over the top of the bead. Or you can push it upwards once you've created that little wrapped loop up at the top. So because my earring findings have forward facing loops, I'm going to make a sideways facing loop into which they can be added in a moment. So let's turn that wire around those round nose pliers again to create a loop shape. Now, because earrings don't have to hold a huge weight, if you prefer, you can make a simple loop, but I'm just going to show you a quick wrapped loop as well. So let's just make sure that that's nice and strong. And then we'll take that tail of wire all the way around that core. It does help if it's nice and warm to begin with, because you manage to get smoother wraps. Get that to sit in position. Give it a very gentle little kiss with your pliers to make it sit exactly where you want it to. And I think I'm going to go for another little coil up at the top. And what you can do with this one is push it upwards towards the top of your earring stack, just to add some details to your design. Let's grab those bent chain nose pliers back in again. Now sometimes what you might find is your wrapping wire moves ever so slightly as you're creating a design like this, a little stacked earring. Don't worry, you can push it back into position, and once you've added your final spiral, everything will start to sit still. So we've got that spiral pretty much centralised on that core wire, and then I'm just going to push that upwards towards the top of my earring stack. Push that down into position, and once I've added my earring findings in a second, very, very quick bead soup earring. So here we have those finished earrings from my bead soup mix. All you need are a couple of through drilled beads. I've used a spacer and a rondelle, and then some form of pendant, charm or dropper down at the bottom. I think they're really charming. I hope that you enjoy them. My name is Jem for Jessie James Beads.